America and the West in general is very, very liberal. There has been a lot of work towards treating the genders equal and allowing women in particular to have rights and freedoms and conveniences that are not necessarily observed in other nations. And so a lot of times when you have women, black women, just or women in particular who want to go and explore the world and experience things and experience life, it can be a bit of a culture shock when they go into a society where things are still very traditional or where there is a strong operating patriarchy. I ran across this video of a black solo traveler who had a pretty negative experience when visiting Egypt. I'm going to play it for you and then we'll break it down.
Countries I did not feel safe in as a solo black woman. And I might get some hate for this one, but y'all, Egypt, it just wasn't it for me. And I can already hear y'all saying, oh, well, you gotta have a tour guide with you the entire time to enjoy it properly. Don't leave your hotel without a guide or something along those lines. But no, I review places as a solo black woman, and that means no guide, no local, or anything.
So y'all heard that. She said, I review places as a solo black woman. I review places as a solo black woman, no guide, no nothing. Again, this mindset in America in particular, where women are given pretty much equal access to many things, and in some cases even privileges, access to opportunities to visit places. They're not necessarily held back because they have a man or not have a man. Like this kind of culture of a woman being able to travel and move freely is very common in America, in the States, and just in the West in particular, in Europe the same way. But these other cultures in Africa, some cultures in Latin America, especially where patriarchy is really strong, or there may be a really strong Muslim influence, or just a strong influence of the Abrahamic faiths in general, those countries, they're not treating men and women the same. They're just not, right? Those countries do not view women the same. And it's usually very clear that there are a place for women and then there is a place for men. So now I don't pretend to be an expert on Egypt. I don't really know enough about it or the current culture to be able to really lean in. But just what I do know in general about a lot of African nations is that they just tend to be a lot more conservative, especially where there is a strong influence of Abrahamic faiths. The gender roles are a lot more clear. For example, when I went to Zanzibar, I went with my husband, and we got a particular list of like things to do, what things not to do, and they were recommending that the woman dress a particular way, that the women cover up when they were going into town. And the locals were very, very, very friendly, but they just made it clear that gender roles were in existence, and just society was a lot more conservative. So already I'm looking at the way that this woman dressed. She has her breast out. She's dressed in a very provocative way already. And I get it. You're in Africa. It's probably hot out there. You're relaxing on the beach. But if you are a solo black traveler from America and you are taking your American ideals and your American wardrobe into the societies that are really conservative, yeah, you're going to be perceived in a particular kind of way. So again, I don't pretend to be like an expert about Egypt, but already just based upon the way that she's dressed and what I do understand about, African cultures, they're seeing your breast out like that. They're seeing you clean. They may make certain assumptions, and that's what it seems like happened here. But let's continue.
So let me get into it. Sharm el Sheikh did have some beautiful beaches, but I've never felt so scammed. I never felt so taken advantage of, and I just never felt so uneasy.
That could just be a place where they're not used to seeing women be by themselves, or if they are by themselves, normally it's a prostitute. Like, I'd be curious to understand the perspective of the average Egyptian. But again, many African cultures, you just don't be seeing women going around like that. Or if they are, where's your husband? Where's your man? There is a role for men and women in society, and you just don't venture outside of that. And so I think it is important when you go to other countries to try to understand as much as possible what are cultural norms. I know you want to be a solo black traveler, and that's great, but if you're going to go to a society that is clearly very patriarchal, or if you're going to be going to a society where the local women don't go around freely with their breast out, then if you want to be a solo black traveler, maybe you don't go to that area, maybe you don't go to that country. So I think that's where it is really important, as much as possible, to try to do understanding, or to get a sense of not only how do they treat locals, how do they treat women locals, how do they treat women who are single, because men traveling alone in these different countries, is going to be perceived differently than a woman traveling alone in these different countries, largely because of how these more traditional societies work. And I think that's something that's hard sometimes for women in the West, American women or Black women in particular, to reckon with when they leave the US, where there's a lot of freedoms given to them, and they go into these societies where patriarchy actually is a thing, or where men and women having distinctive gender roles and being enforced is a thing. So it is important to know, what culture are you going to visit? Is this culture even friendly to solo Black female travelers? Like, if it's not, then don't go. Hopefully you could find that information online. That would just be my thought.
Every single interaction is somebody trying to take your money and take advantage of you. And I travel a lot, but it's a huge difference in a tourist price and just straight up being scammed. Every interaction will be something like this: $100 for a $10 t-shirt. And then when you walk away because it's absurd, they're like, oh, 70. And then they might go down to like 30, and then 25, and then 15.
I mean, this is common wherever you go. Really, like anytime you're going to a country that is dependent upon tourism for a large aspect of its economy, it is not uncommon to see locals try to scam. I've seen that in multiple different places.
But like every single interaction is you having to damn near fight for a decent price. And it's literally exhausting. It's a difference in haggling and trying to talk down scam prices. So after the mental strain of fighting for decent prices all day long, when I tried to like go to restaurants where prices...
Okay, so she said, I dressed modestly, but the men were still creeps. The idea of modest actually can vary and does vary from country to country. For example, I had a friend who visited northern Nigeria recently, in an area that's very, very, very conservative. And, she generally dresses pretty modest, but she was telling me how she had brought some shorts and she had bought some dresses that were like knee length. And she was asking, oh, is this okay for me to wear? And they're like, no, that's a little bit too provocative. And she's thinking, what? But just in that particular area, in that particular region, they're like, no, it's a little bit better if you wear things knee length. And so an idea of being conservative in America that might even change in a country where women are literally covered from head to toe, or it's not uncommon to see that. So again, there are all these little subtleties that can be missed if you don't understand the culture, if you're not aware of the culture. And that's where, again, you would hope to have as much information as possible before going there. Sometimes you can't necessarily do that depending upon the scenario, but I think it's just a good thing as a woman to know, because there are a lot of countries out there that don't perceive men and women as equal in function. Out here in America, we try to treat women as equal in function. And in some cases, they get privileges. Out in these other societies, they do not see men and women as equal in function. So again, it's important to have that mindset when traveling.
Are like setting the menu and things like that, they still want to charge me whatever. Mind you, I was here for about a month because I was working and traveling, but I literally had to walk around with my headphones in just so I can have a good day and not be bothered. Like, the icing on the cake was this fake taxi driver literally taking me to the wrong location on purpose and then literally holding me hostage in his car and demanding 4 times the amount. I was so scared. I was pissed. And then he broke my suitcase on top of that. So Egypt, 2 out of 10. Come see the pyramids, but that's it.
So he broke her suitcase. I mean, breaking somebody's suitcase is crazy. And I know out in America, you may be able to give reviews on Yelp and call somebody's boss or file a complaint depending upon the context. It's probably a lot harder to do that in another country where, you don't speak the same language. Some of those things are regulated. It just is what it is. I think this is a good video because it is important to understand for women who love to travel in particular that, yeah, there are certain risks associated with going abroad, especially when you do it by yourself. I personally would never try to travel by myself. I just don't think I would enjoy it. Well, at least not out of country. Within state, maybe fine depending on the context, but I personally don't think I would ever think to try to travel out of country by myself, especially in a country where I don't know the language. This doesn't seem like it'd be a good idea. But nevertheless, it is important to understand that not all countries see women as equal in function. And just because you enjoy a certain level of freedom or a certain level of cultural norms in America does not mean that those norms are going to be upheld in other countries. If you're going to that country, then you hopefully would be able to adapt to what their cultural norm is. And if you think that cultural norm is too oppressive, you think it's strange, you think it's weird, then don't go. Just don't go. But hopefully do that information and do that research beforehand. But anyways, That's what I got. Have you ever been to Egypt? Are you from Egypt? I'd like to hear from you. Let me know about your experience. Leave your questions, comments, concerns in the comment section below. Thank you so much for listening if you've gotten this far, and we'll talk later. Bye.